All right, I'll call the meeting to order. The October 15th budget meeting. We'll go around the introductions. Mr. Start.
Mishka Haddock.
Carrie Lee. Jen Byron.
Jackie Snow.
Susan Levinson.
Jeff Wheeler.
Gene Reed.
Anthony Dumas.
Welcome all. I'll go over the minutes for the September 24th. Can I get a motion to accept the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from September 24th, 2015.
I need a second.
Second.
All right. Any additions, changes, adds, corrections?
Tell me that line again, Sue.
I'm doing it from memory, so let me take a quick look. Yeah, it was line 87. We were just taking a quick look at Stratford and Northwood, not to really establish tuition estimates, but to just see if there have been any move-outs from Nottingham into those schools at the high school level.
So, high school attendance, student counts?
Attendees to, yeah, just to,
Tuition
Just
estimates
basically-
based on the,
no, it wasn't that. It was just this, we were looking at Northwood and Stratford and Northwood High School attendances, and probably just take out to help establish tuition estimates.
Okay.
And a takeout while being sensitive to possible budget needs. And it would be to see if there are shifting numbers of high school students from Nottingham into those towns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dawn, on page 4, line 150, I think either there's an extra "it's" or the sentence just needs to be continued, so I wasn't sure there.
Sorry, Jackie, which line?
Oh, sorry, 150 on page 4.
Okay.
Also on line 150, it's Miss Fernald, not Furland. I'm sure she'd speak up if she was here.
Good catch.
Yep.
Any other changes or corrections? All in favor of changes as corrected? Actually, I wasn't here, so I should abstain.
Wait, I need to count, sorry.
I'll abstain. I wasn't here, so.
Huh?
I wasn't here, so I'll abstain.
Okay. So, any opposed?
Any opposed?
Who's abstaining? How many? 2? 3? All right.
Moving along. Current town financials. Anything glaring or, no?
Nothing much has changed in the last 4 weeks, other than what you have on the approved in September.
Pretty straightforward.
There was an open action regarding the new fire pickup truck. The warrant article was from 49, the numbers are coming in around 47. With high confidence we're under budget.
Great. Is that a function of negotiation, or is it just the price came down?
No, good negotiation skills by the fire chief and the people he had working with him on it. He went to General Motors, Ford, and Dodge, and he went to 2 places for Dodge, and then they planned against each other, so.
It's
The
great.
truck itself actually came in under 40, but to do all the fit out, it raises it, so. Oh, you just got a master negotiator there, so. Good job.
That's great.
What happens to the 2,000 difference? It just doesn't get spent, it stays, because it's been raised and appropriated, but it didn't get spent, so it just goes to general fund.
Well, I don't feel the general fund, it doesn't go into any kind of fund that we can spend this year.
Right.
You know, it gets wrapped back in almost to the MSA.
Does this cover any revenues?
I think.
We didn't have the revenues. No, sorry.
Who do I see for the revenues? Chris?
No, but I'm not sure that that's had everything calculated in the last time they were presented, so.
Can you
They'll
put,
go the next meeting.
can you put that as a follow-up item then, please?
Sure.
So the high level is all the large expenditures for the year are done. And there's no more large expenditures coming up. And so everything that was front loaded is taken care of. And we are, we're well within budget. We're looking to be about 23% left for the year, but, we know that we've spent some things ahead, so we're in really good shape. Even if we have a major snowstorm, we'll be in good shape. Any specific questions?
We have a couple minutes to review, please.
Okay, question, line 77. It's on page 2. The valuation update?
There is a capital reserve fund for that. That's part of the valuation, the 5-year assessment that's going on. So that's coming back over from a reserve fund that we've been putting aside for the last 5 years.
The cost of the valuation?
Yeah, we save ahead.
I'm sorry?
We save ahead for that.
It's in the, as a line item every year too. So it won't be a big hit during the year of the mandatory 5-year reval.
I got a question on line 15 on page 1, executive department total, it says equipment. Is that still, is that the filing cabinet?
I believe,
Appropriated 8,300.
I believe it is
What line number again?
15, the new filing cabinets that we're gonna get for the long-term storage.
So nothing's been expended yet.
No,
You,
yes, we got it done before the end of the year.
thank you.
We had some issues with the, I don't care if it was the roof or the heating system here in this building last year. Is that all that ready to go for this winter?
Roof? We had the roof done.
That was done this summer.
The front part of the roof, the one that was in the worst shape. We still need to talk about other parts of the roof for coming up. But for the heating system, you know, we have that $3,000 capital reserve fund that we're putting away, because the heating system is like 25 years old.
Yeah.
Wish my heating system would last that. I think I got 15 out of it. And so we're putting money aside, just, you know, assuming that we're gonna have a nut there to take care of at some point.
So that's a line item to save for that?
Yeah, there's a capital reserve fund. There's a warrant article for that, 3,000 a year. We'll be talking about whether it's sufficient to put 3 in it for a year. Because, it'll be a pretty expensive replacement. But, every year we have it serviced, and they say it's running great, and they say it's running at the best efficiency that's gonna run at. So, it's just a ticking issue.
But when it reaches that limit, it's gonna be somewhat, or maybe all financially prepared.
We like to be. It's kinda, I think it's kinda, we probably started saving for that 3 years too late, maybe 5 years too late. So, but at least we're putting something.
And we're talking about the central heating plant, not all this
Right,
stuff.
right. It's the boiler that's down in behind the gym.
Mark, I forget, was that a more recent warrant article, or has that one been around for several years?
2 years.
I'm sorry?
2 years.
2 years, okay, thank you.
Does it appear every year, or is that one that's, yeah? Is it combined with anything else, do you remember? Fire department. The fire department, I'm missing it, or isn't there a stipend that's set aside every year for the volunteers?
Where is that?
Yes, line item 194.
On the other page.
Other page. The one that says stipend,
Oh, starts with an S?
STIPEND.
Yeah, that would be it, thank you.
My notes say the question that Gene will ask.
You already got that. How long has it been since that's been adjusted?
I think that I think we made a small adjustment to that about 2 or 3 years ago. Do you remember, Dawn? The chief came in, did we make an adjustment to it? I know we talked about it, it was 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, you want me to find out? I can find out.
Yes, please.
To get the specifics.
This is last year's, and of course, we'll be looking at that line item in the
Yeah.
preparation, that's why I'm asking.
Page 4, line 217 or 218, negative 292%. Fire and rescue miscellaneous.
218.
Yeah, $876.
Yeah,
That was a pretty small number, so I didn't get any detail behind that. Do you want it?
yeah, it's just so that'll balance out from somewhere else, I assume, at some point then.
Yeah.
Because then there's an,
If you look at the fire rescue total, they're still running with 42% of their budget remaining this year.
okay, so you don't know what
It was budgeted for $300 and $1,100 was spent. That's
Yeah.
what drives that number so high.
exactly. I'm just wondering what a miscellaneous for almost $1,200.
You want me to find out?
Sure. And then a few more lines down, this building inspector part-time salary, what is this, negative 441%?
Well, we had our building inspector had surgery this year.
So you had some
So we
filling
have
in,
part-time.
gotcha.
What line is that, please? Oh, it's the
223.
Gotcha. Good. Thank you. No surgery scheduled for next year? The budget for, no, I mean, seriously, that you know of.
No, no.
Good for him. Good for us.
Not that we can plan for.
Yeah.
Is that typically someone that you already have in-house, or you find, that you
No,
just
we-
fills in
we-
the time?
We have a certified building inspector
Fills
that
in.
comes in and fills in whenever calls out. So we're in good shape there.
Page 5, line 322, the Historical Society. It's,
Page 5.
yeah, page 5, line 322.
Let's get there, 322. The $6,000?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a grant that we have offsetting revenue coming in for. So, and when we look at the revenue, you'll see that $6,000. I got a grant to preserve some historical stuff.
So that's why it shows a negative, same amount
Yeah,
of
it shows
negative,
it
but
shows
no,
a
but
negative.
no percentage of overspending because it's gonna be offset by.
Well, it's offset, and it wasn't something that we, wasn't something that we budgeted for. We didn't know that they were gonna go after it and get it. They did, and they did. So, we didn't spend the money until we knew that they had the grant.
Because that drives the total for the
Hmm.
Historical Society to outrageous number.
Yeah.
60,000%, yeah.
If you go back to highway, we'll be buying salt before the end of the year. So the line 262 is underspent, but we'll spend it by the end of the year.
How are the prices looking on that compared to last year?
They're better, better. Simmons Shield Coat was better this year too because of oil prices.
Petroleum.
Johnny said that there was, hasn't seen these prices that low in about 5 years. That was good. So we have an underspending on the shim and seal coat. And Johnny was gonna use that to do a little bit more, but we've got a bill coming in for the grader. We had a $10,000 expense on the grader for some maintenance, so that'll get eaten up there.
Is that a lease purchase or purchase?
The grader? Don't know.
Want to get to the CIP, maybe we'll take a look at that.
We talked about it a little bit
And I'm not sure.
Monday. I thought that maybe it's a lease purchase. I don't know.
But we're responsible for the maintenance on it regardless.
Yeah.
On page 6, line 340, fire station principal, $12,673 over. What is,
Well,
Line again, sorry.
line
340. Principal payment on the fire station?
Budgeted for 41 and spent 53.
Yeah.
Didn't that come from the impact fee
Yes.
to settle the applied
Hang
town
down.
portion of the impact fees on file to make a reduction in the principal?
It's not actually
so-
out of that budget, right? It's actually out of.
So it shows an over expenditure, but again, it doesn't define where that over expenditure came from, which I think I got the right idea that it came from the impact fee.
What is the impact fee? I know that we recently approved some impact fees. Oh, yeah? I can clarify if you all want.
No, not me.
No, I think didn't Donna say that at our last meeting?
Donna did
Yeah, I
say
asked
that.
about that one a couple of meetings
Yeah.
ago.
I think that's right, that's accurate.
Almost like we need another column for those type of random
on page 7?
items.
Let's see what's on your page 7.
Huh? It's somebody got some comment on page 7 before I speak?
No, I'm gonna comment just at the last part, the differential and the percentage remaining of the budget. Is it on this page? If you comment, go ahead.
No,
Doesn't want general comment on anything specific goes, so if you get something in mind, go for it.
The version that I got yesterday doesn't include the warrant articles that you've seen here.
so this doesn't show a bottom line of gross spending to indicate that your estimate of being under budget.
I can read it off to you from,
I mean, we don't have that, do we?
Yeah.
Am I
On
missing
page
something?
Page 6.
Yeah.
You see page 6?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I'm jumped ahead. Yep, thank you.
You're
Here
welcome.
we go. On the social services accounts, that list, how do we budget for that next year? Do we get letters requesting a donation or voluntary? Yes, we do. And in past years, some people haven't come by and picked up their checks or responded. It looks like there are two like that this year. At least I'm seeing American Red Cross, the balance is still there, and 0 expenditures. In the right-hand column, it shows 0 expenditures for several.
Where are you? Oh.
I'm on page 7 on.
Yeah, I don't actually know exactly when all of those get paid. We still have 3 months left in the year.
Yeah,
Right, so some of them may be being paid this year, but we did switch from, we added CASA, I think.
the cost is one that hasn't been
Yeah.
spent.
And we moved that from something else.
They're new, they didn't know they actually received the funds.
Yeah, because we didn't tell them.
The CASA was a request by the police department and the volunteer director, I believe, because they do provide such good services and assistance. Donna requested, I believe, this amount go to them because of the services that they provide.
But the point is, it hasn't, whereas the vast majority have been spent, paid.
I think their request was just, so payments for social services don't go out until after July 1st, after the first round of tax bills. And then as long as they send a letter anytime between July 1st and December, you pay the bill.
Well, what triggers the payout?
They have to request it.
They request it, and then we sign off on it.
Because it's already been raised and appropriated.
Appropriate, yeah. So we just make sure it matches and Chris makes sure it matches and he brings it to us.
Is it I see Safe Place as one of them, but is it SAS and a Safe Place that are now one and the same, or is it Sharp and a Safe Place? I believe Safe Place is now being managed by SAS. I see they picked up their check, but maybe don't realize they have a second one even.
Can't answer that.
They're not.
So revenues to come.
Revenues to come.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Need more time?
So I have actions to find out when was the last stipend, when was the fire department stipend last adjusted? What is in the fire rescue miscellaneous? And was the grader a lease purchase? I don't think it was, but I'll get some clarification on those. Any other?
The answer may be right in here too.
Yeah. Any other actions that I should be taking? Okay. Thank you.
All right, first quarter school financials.
First up, I have an enrollment report for all of you for the month of September. The school board will be receiving the October enrollment report at our next meeting, and I'll see that you get that. Just a quick recap on enrollment. The Nottingham school currently has 522 students, K through 5. That's up 18 students from last year. From the 14-15 school year, we had 504. The enrollment report that we receive in October is the report that will go to the state, and they will use it to put into their data benching online. But it should be materially similar to this report. We have 18 homeschooled children, K to 8. And then if you look at the high school, you'll see that we have 11 homeschool students and 222 total high school students, for a total of 762 district-wide. And again, you'll be updated at our next meeting with the October numbers. Are there any questions on that?
It says Exeter, is that Exeter
Exeter High School?
High School?
Yep. Yeah, the box to the right, it represents grades 9 through 12.
Yeah. But it's Exeter High School, not Phillips Exeter.
No, that's a private school.
And alternate education, that's for special students that are challenged.
Alternative education is, that's a Dover student, I believe. Yes, so if there are issues.
What's CATA?
I beg your pardon?
CATA?
That is
Chico.
Kachiko Arts and Technology. It's a charter school in Dover. And over the years, we've had anywhere from maybe 5 or so.
Only one right now, huh?
Yeah, only one. That is low. It's typically 3, 4, 5 kids there. I think we just graduated a couple of kids. Anything else on that? Okay. The high school enrollment also, according to the DOE reports, 197 last year in October, and it's 222 this year.
Say those numbers again, please.
197.
And now?
You're looking at 222. However, I would deduct the 11, because I don't believe that's tracking through the homeschool number.
So it would be, a head count in the school would be 211.
Yeah.
Previous, no,
Today.
today
Less
versus
the,
197 before, so
yeah.
a net of 3 and 11 is 14. Do you know what those, attribute those to, as move-ins, or?
Yeah, you'd have move-ins, I don't know. I think that homeschool number is higher than what I've seen in the past for high school.
I believe, did you not have a smaller 12th grade class graduate and a larger 8th
Um,
grade class coming in?
Well, yeah, it could be partially that. We could look and see what the 8th grade class was. I think it was 50 students.
Well, what I'm looking at is that when you look at the elementary school, up 18 students, which is practically a class, and an additional 14
Yep.
is a total of 30-something children that have come from somewhere,
Right.
but we don't know where. Or we haven't defined where. I mean, it's easy. I'm just looking for a trend, if that's related to new homes or home sales.
I can look into it and we can see, you know, well, if you look at it here, you can see, they can do a quick tally on each grade and look to see how 9th grade looks. So, yeah, we can take a look. You know, going into 9th grade, you have the 37 and the 18 right there, and then 2 at Pinkerton. So, I think we graduated. Instead of speculating, we'll get exact numbers for you, and we can show you what those look like. To do a little work on that.
thing I'm thinking about is if we're seeing a net increase in students, it has to be attributable to something
You're seeing students going out too, you know, you do
Yeah,
have
that
kids
was
that are
mentioned.
moving, and we can see that there are kids moving out.
Must be a hard thing to
We
track.
saw the calculation when we reconciled the tuition lines, that we had some kids that moved out. We had 10, I believe, so,
Some of that money wasn't spent.
Yeah. yeah.
Do you also find sometimes that some parents might homeschool K through 8, but then sometimes put those students into
I think you
high
have
school?
Portsmouth Christian Academy, and
Yeah.
that's what's sitting in the back of my mind, but I don't have an exact number, you know, so I don't want to do too much speculation. But I do know we have students at Portsmouth Christian, and they come from there or homeschooled, and then they'll hit the high school.
If I remember the last census that was done, we use those numbers a lot when looking at like the school edition, and you kind of see those bubbles just here a little bit in the number. I believe that second grade class was sort of that big bubble everyone was talking about there, and then seventh grade's a pretty big, those are much bigger than typical classes that we've had at Nottingham, so those.
Yeah, and you know, I think next year's kindergarten number may be higher. I think we have higher than normal at the preschool. Now, does that mean that is a bigger population, or does it just mean that more people are availing themselves of that preschool? So, those are some of the things that we look at. And the other thing to remember is that we have 4 sessions of kindergarten, so those kindergartners are not all in the school at the same time. You know, it's broken up. It's a heavier enrollment in the morning than in the afternoon.
What is the age which the kids start kindergarten? 5 years?
It's, if you have to be 5 by
5.
September 30th. So those September kids, like my kids, started at 4, and then by the 11th, they were 5. Then you have other kids that are November, December babies that will be older. So,
Oh, I want to get this right, 5 years by September 1?
September 30th.
Thank you. I didn't have it right. So a class is comprised of the previous year births plus any additions or subtractions from October 1 of the previous year through
It would be so you would look at,
October.
so if you wanted to, like, you just move everything up, so these 8th graders, 51,
Yeah.
would become 9th graders next year.
But-
Everything would roll up
But-
1 year,
We're trying to figure out how many.
and then
would
you'd
start
have to,
kindergarten, though. I think it's more trying to figure out how many would be coming in next year.
Yeah,
as
that-
opposed
that
to-
I-
how many
unaccounted for.
kindergartners are out there is the question.
Yeah.
And if you look at the demographics, you can see that 0 to 5, I think it's in 400 on the Elms. I sent you guys that link after the last meeting. It was almost perfectly skewed. There were a few more over 65, but that 0 to 5 had 400 and something. But are they 6 months old, or are they 5 years old? So that's what you are working on. We do have Child Find. I think our assistant superintendent can speak to you about that. He'd have a good handle around those kinds of things. You are out there searching, looking, trying to determine if there are students that could be in need of maybe services before they even get to school. So you have some information.
If you look at that 0 to 5, though, at 400, technically you could take off a year of that maybe, versus 222 in the 4 years of high school right now. That's a significant difference.
Right, we're starting to you know, it used to be Northwood and Stratford had, you know, 240 or 250. And I was looking at Northwood, and they put an addition on their school a few years back. I think they're still paying for it. They're getting toward the end of it, and they're down to $399. So what, you know, it's just hard to see these fluctuations, so it'll be interesting. But we are continuing, and I think that's why our adequacy is not keeping pace, because we're continuing to show a little bit of, you know, uptick.
Yeah, because if only 200 go out in 4 years and
Yep.
400 actually come in, that's
Yeah, that'll be,
different.
yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see.
and
that.
then you have the kids that are in charter schools right now, K-8, or in private school, so you have to.
Superintendent Robert said that sometime during the budget cycle, he'll have a projection of,
What he does is he tries to take a look for the budget that we're working on, what he thinks we'll be looking at for numbers for that particular budget. And we do have that, we did have the Administrators Association back before I was on the board. I think it was 2009, 2010 maybe. I'm looking at Don because I think you may have been there at the time. And there was a projection done. And if you look at that impact, I sent you, or I'd given out some impact information at the last meeting. That study was kind of incorporated in, but it's higher than what we've actually experienced, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on from that, now, a little more, just to clarify this question, you want a little bit more information around some trends, essentially, on this enrollment report, just to be clear?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I have for you the financial review. I apologize, I had planned to send this to you earlier. The school board has not even seen this yet, so, came off the printer this morning at like maybe 9 o'clock. And I wanted to have a few minutes or so with the business administrator to kind of talk through this. So this is the first quarter. It's July, August, and September. The school board had reviewed an interim report that had July and August. This is still being worked on and reconciled. They do a soft close for each quarter. So there are still numbers on this that will be, worked. She'll have entries that she's going to continue to be making into this quarter. The things that stood out to me on this, on page 1, on the health insurance, that $11,822.53 stood out. And so I talked with her about that. And she said basically for that one, she's in the midst of reconciling lines. She's looking at plan changes that may have occurred with the insurance, and she'll have a better feel for that down the road. So that may or may not change. Teacher salaries under amendments, that $37,173 stood out to me, and our business administrator explained to me that that is an amendment that's related to the warrant article that we had for the CBA that passed. So because of those changes, an amendment was done. Okay. Moving on to page 2, toward the bottom, on teacher of the deaf, there was another large number there, the 13,573. Spoke to her about that, and the special education group is reconciling that line and some other items, so we should have better data on that. I noticed on page 3, under elementary athletic, on that 14-20-5110, 028, the athletic salary is $16,000. Nothing's been encumbered, and those are stipend type positions that we need people to enroll for, if you will, and then also have to have those approved before she'll be able to encumber them. So that's the answer for that.
That's what line again?
That's
63.
thank you for that shorthand. I would have done the whole thing.
It's much easier that way.
Yeah.
Well, we did that, thank you.
So is that process just delayed this year because I know fall sports underway and you
Yeah,
already have
I
coaches
think,
and all of that?
I
so-
think that for the first quarter, she's doing a lot of catch-up work. And I think that some of it is, there will be fall sports that she should know about already, but then there are other things that she doesn't have in the pipeline yet, so I think it's work in process for her.
We'll be paying our coaches, right? No doubt about that, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes, we expect to pay them. Let me see here. I had a note on page 5 line 118, and there were a few of these salary type lines where you see that negative at the end, and that is related to the salary pool that we have. So you have the salary pool, you do your evaluations, and then you'll move from the salary pool into those lines, and those lines will adjust. So that was that answer.
Salary pool, is that like a merit-based rate?
It's when you do the
system?
evaluation, so you put aside a certain percentage overall, and then you'll have your evaluations, and then you can move to each individual a percentage
And that,
based on the,
you know where that pool budgeted, the gross amount?
let me find that for you. I don't know offhand which line that is.
We'll get to it eventually.
Yeah. I can make a note of it too, so I don't hold you up, but, and even email you the line. So, let me see here. I mean, it's so early, pretty much here. I mean, we feel like we're tracking okay. And I believe that even by next week, as she does more encumbrances, that the Q1 analysis that the board itself sees will be different somewhat from this. So, let's see here.
This is the current school year, then.
Yes, this is the
2015,
first, yeah, the
16.
first quarter.
Is last year's closed out?
Last year, we had talked about here briefly, it is under a formal audit with Mellons and Heath. They've come out and done their field work. We still have our GASB 45 that will need to be worked on and adjusted. And so they're moving through. I would imagine December timeframe, you would probably see those audited financials complete.
So we're,
That's something too that we could certainly ask Marjorie when she comes before you November 12th.
time to finish the audit for the previous school year, which ended June 30, won't be until
They start
6
the,
months
they
later.
start the audit in July, in August. They have to come out and do their scope work. And by the way, they're working on all three at the same time.
All three.
All three, so Stratford, Northwood, and Nottingham, they're doing all three at the same time in the SAU. So,
Do you have unaudited results?
I've shown you those. At a prior meeting, we brought you unaudited
So
results.
that will be the last available until the
Right.
audited.
Yeah, and as I explained at that time, they'll be making their adjusting journal entries based on the audit. They have their GASB 45 entry, which relates to that retirement liability that they'll have to make that adjusting entry for, and I have no idea what that will be. So those are the kinds of things that are out there right now for that. And it may be before December, I'm not sure.
I spoke briefly with you before, talking about that past budget, which ended June 30, about encumbered items. Whether there's going to be any encumbered items entered in that budget that will affect the bottom line. And I don't remember if we got an answer.
I thought we talked about it and you felt comfortable. I wasn't sure if there were any other asks on that. If there are, I can certainly research it for you.
Yes. Yes means I might have not asked specifically, but I'll ask now, is what those encumbered items are and what is we use that word encumbered, Susan, and unfortunately we use it two different ways, and I think I understand both. One is the RSA 32 area about what is an encumbrance, and the other is an accounting function where if you have money set aside and you know you're going to spend it, then the accountant calls it encumbered because it's scheduled to be funded. So I just want to make it clear that I'm asking about the Chapter 32 RSA encumbered items, which shouldn't be many, and how they are encumbered. Are they encumbered by a PO? Are they encumbered by a contract? Are they encumbered by?
Are you, I want to, so I just do want to clarify again what I want to go right into the thing and look at the RSA then around this, because I'm not sure I'm exactly clear what you're asking for.
Okay.
Are you asking for things that, yeah, I don't even want to speculate.
I'll restate it while you're looking up. For any budget that the time frame for the use of monies has expired or come to an end, there is a way to still spend money from that budget. And the way to expend money from that budget is to have had entered into a contract prior to the end of that budget period that legally obligates the selectmen, school board, to pay that. And therefore, it was budgeted for, not spent, but we signed a
So
contract.
out of the surplus from the prior year, was there anything spent that would actually be paid this year, but it's being paid as, and it'll be an adjusting
think you-
entry
I
to the
think you
prior
should-
year? And I think, is that it? No.
If you have a line item for health supplies,
Yeah.
and you didn't realize you needed them until June. So you called up the health supply company and said, we need X for the nurse's station, we need X and X and X. You wrote a PO, they sent back an agreement, you signed it, but they said we won't be able to deliver that until August, which is after the end of that budget cycle. Those funds would be legally encumbered and to be spent from the previous year's budget.
From the appropriate year's budget?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I know that we had one of the air handlers on the roof that we did at the end as a board. But there may be some of those things, like you're saying.
I just don't want to confuse the two terms, because
Yep.
I think not only I have been confused by it, but others have too, and they use the word encumbered, but it can't have two meanings. Or, it can't have two meanings. It means the same thing, but from where the encumbered funds are entirely different.
I have notes from our September 10th meeting where there were 2 open POs. And I have a note here about $3,000
Yep.
for GKS Services
That rings a bell.
and Carrie McMahon.
Well,
And that was it.
that's my, that leads to where I was going with the question. Legally, we need more than a PO, because a PO is not a legal obligation to pay, is my unqualified legal opinion per the texts I have read about. You need a contract of some kind, whether that's a service agreement that you signed or a formal contract that says, I will pay this and you will supply this, and you both agree to it. A contract is an offer and acceptance. In most cases with municipalities, it's in writing. A PO is an authorization to spend money.
A PO is a contract in the accounting world.
In the accounting world, it may be, but I refer you back to 32 again, as to what, it's not a legal obligation to pay.
So
It is
you're,
setting funds aside by generating a PO. A purchase order gives a number to a potential purchase. And from there, it can go to any number of qualified people, and at that time, the school, the town offers to buy salt. And until there's a response and an acceptance of that response, there is no contract and no obligation to pay. Because on that PO, it may, I don't know how, that's why I'm interested in how it's handled, because it's been abused, and I'm not saying by the school, but in business, it's been abused. I've been there. And people tend to encumber funds to protect the next year's budget. That's the root of my question, quite frankly.
okay,
32 explains it all, the budget workshop we just went to.
yeah, I was there. Okay, so I pulled out the highlights that I thought you would have questions on. I don't know if there are any other lines that you do have questions on. I'll certainly try to help.
I had a question on page 4, row 97 for OT. Is that, again, we're just kind of waiting for some of those encumbrances to be booked? Because I'm assuming that OT services are going on in the school. I was just surprised that there's no
What line is that,
actuals or
please?
encumbrance. 97
Thank
on
you.
page 4.
Yeah, I think that, again, those are services, and so I think in order for her to encumber, she's just looking for the appropriate documentation, and this is, early on for her.
Yeah.
So those are the things that the special education department would be working with her to provide. But we definitely are ongoing providing
Yes, that's what I thought.
OT.
Sue, on line 98, page 4, it looks like PT services might be over encumbered with budget. Is that a artifact of the default budget, or?
No, I'll double check the reason for that.
What line number?
That's line 98. I thought I'd hit most of the ones that had gone negative.
I assume that's a special education service, so the needs of the child might change based on what was initially speculated.
Yeah, I mean, they would have things for, in their IEPs. They may have a student that they hadn't anticipated or an expanded need, I'm not sure.
Working with this default budget, essentially, round numbers, wasn't that about $100,000 difference?
Yep.
What have we sacrificed to live with that?
That's gonna be ongoing. We're gonna be talking about that as we proceed. We're probably gonna have to sacrifice some technology,
Does
off the
this-
top.
Sorry. Does this reflect the default budget appropriations then?
This, yes, if you look at the bottom line, the actual budget, let's see here. Yeah, it was like $143,000 difference.
Yeah.
The proposed budget was 11,194,000, and this budget is 11,117. However, that's got the revisions in it from the warrant articles, so it's not completely clean. Let me see if we've got the default right here. So, the default that you guys looked at last year, 10,946,050. This is the budget, the binder from last period.
But the specific programs that would affect or not, then you haven't worked that out yet, which I understand.
I think we're definitely working through it. We know that we may not have, we're running pretty tight. We're gonna have to look at tuition. We're gonna have to see what Dover comes in at, for their tuition. We don't have that yet. That's been running as an estimate. And then we'll have a better idea. So really, I think things will play out better in the November, December timeframe, and we'll get a better feel. But I know right off the cuff that we're probably gonna have to look at technology and some of those supposed extras. We had money in here for a junior honor society, which would have been something really good for our kids, being in a K-8 school, for them to have that opportunity. So hopefully we can still, do some of those things.
If you run out of money, sort of,
We're not gonna run out of money, I don't
no,
believe.
what I'm saying, if you did, there's recourse for that, right, legal recourse to get more money from the town, from the taxpayers.
Well, as you know, having been at the budget committee, you have to go, if you overspend your budget, we're not gonna overspend our budget though. I
I'm
mean,
not insinuating that you are, but what I'm saying is
but you would
that-
have to go to a special meeting, come
Yeah.
back before the budget committee, and then you'd have issues. So, that's not really an option for us.
I think that would be frowned upon.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I think that would be frowned upon, right?
Well, she said she expects not to overspend, so. But with some sacrifices.
We usually get the history, sooner or later, I believe we get those numbers from Dover in November.
Yeah, we should get those pretty quickly,
Okay.
and so we'll have to definitely take a look at that. We have exact numbers for Co-Brown, but for Dover, we had budgeted,
Was it 11,000?
yeah, she had initially wanted to go up 5% to 12,092, but then it changed to 3%, so, we'll just have to see.
Question on page 8, starting with line item 174. A few of these line items that have to do with salary that are anticipated balance. Is that a function of the CBA?
That was the item I had looked at. What we do is we have the salary pool, and so then when the employees are evaluated, the money will come out of the salary pool and be applied to the individual
Gotcha.
lines. And I just honestly can't remember where we had that salary pool in here.
Is it 177?
Possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's the administrator.
There it is, salary pool for the
Oh,
administrators.
for the administrator.
Yeah, based on the numbers, the delta there, that
Thank you.
adds up correctly, I think, yeah. 6.
And let me take a look at that.
Must be one in each,
Yeah, in each little
in each
section.
section, I
Yep.
would think, because that's only for administrators, so there must be a salary pool line in every section.
Every non-contract person.
Yeah,
Or
be my
group.
guess. Prior, when you were talking about, Gina was asking some questions about, when you were talking before about pool and evaluations, that was actually different. You were actually talking about special education evaluations. and
No,
then
I was
have that
talking,
pool.
I was talking, referring to the
Was.
curriculum director and the principal and.
Well, I think we were back, Jean was asking some questions earlier in the, like, special ed lines. There's
Okay.
also some, I'm trying to see where it was now. Say like, well, we just looked at one of them, PTOT. I mean, those funds get moved around after IEPs and evaluations are done, depending on what services are needed for
Yeah.
specific students. That's different than a pool of like, this person's getting a raise versus.
I don't think they're definitely, I don't think these are
Different issues.
these are general pools. I think these take into consideration the services that they know they need to provide. In fact, I think we can probably look at the notes, which I
Like
brought.
teacher for the deaf, teacher for the blind, like those sort of things, OT, PT, those get evaluated after the school year starts and
They would definitely be reevaluated.
Right.
So, like, these actual notes. The current IEP needs for physical therapy include direct service, consultation, evaluations. We anticipate the current number of students will continue to need PT, so they are going with the same number of students. A history of billable hours includes, then they went back through the years, 09 and 10, 336, 409, so they take those hours and then anticipate 394 hours at a current rate of $71 with an estimated 3% increase, so that's how they arrived at that. And then you'll look at your exact IEPs.
I think it was speech health that was,
Yeah, the
we had talked about that
OT.
before.
The OT, nothing's been encumbered yet. The PT looks like it's going to go over, so I'll have Mr. Rooney speak to that, but it would appear that it's gonna be higher than the number of hours they had anticipated.
So those possibly, they'll have less to do with like merit raises and that sort of
Oh,
stuff, as
absolutely.
opposed to what contracted
actual
services
need,
are
student
actually
need,
needed.
yep.
Correct. Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Is there anything else on the Q1? We have high school transportation and tuition broken out separately toward the end, so you can get a feel for those costs separate.
Any other questions?
Okay, so we have just a question on line 98, about how that one went negative, and that relates to the OT, and then a little bit more data on the enrollment. And that's all?
And then the health insurance on page 1, you said, depending on how that was changed with the
line 4.
Right.
Right, she's doing a recon on that right now, so when we have those results.
Anything else? All right, let's finish that off. Subcommittee reports. Any updates?
Marston property, we had, an RFP was put out for different companies to come up with proposals as to how to go about doing a design plan and moving forward with the Marston property. Those, several have come in. We have not had a chance as a committee to go over them yet. We have a meeting on the 22nd to do that, so I'll follow up at the next meeting with more information regarding the RFPs that came in.
Awesome. It'll be good to get some information, some detailed information on what our options are.
It's interesting to see, you know, the different size packages that came in. I mean, we have some companies that have like unbelievable amounts of people that have skills in all different areas and you know, they're 24/7 service kind of thing, and then you've got the small, you know, one, or mom and pop shop that do this kind of design work and that kind of thing. So prices are all over the board, but we haven't had a chance to review them.
I previewed some of those,
Yeah, I've
and
reviewed
it's
some of them
gonna be
too.
a job. I mean, some of them are this thick with information, previous projects, and it says qualified people and experience with this job and this job. A lot of it is reference rather than
Right.
substance of,
Right,
but they do get down to the substance. And I noticed, just like you said, the prices are all over the place.
all over the place, yeah. I mean, we've got.
I think the
companies
low
that-
was what, 16 or 18 or something like that?
Something like that. One of them was way up in the
You have something to
45.
say to me?
I'm just
You've been
listening.
staring at me all night. You have something
I'm,
to say?
I'm sorry, it's sort of a direct, I'm just listening. I mean,
Anyhow, and do you know what the high was? I don't
I
remember.
want to say it was up way up in the 40s, something like that. But it was different because some of the companies were showing us things that were more in the area that we want to be in, and then you had the one that came in about this thick that showed, you know, 15 different projects that they'd done were all $2, $3, $4, $5 million projects, which is not what we're looking for. So, you know, we'll have to discuss it and see what we can come up with.
You got some work to do there.
Oh yeah.
some of that work was beautiful, though. The
Oh, yeah.
pictures that they had, wow.
Look forward to seeing it,
What's beautiful? I missed that.
Some of the photos and some of the
projects that
they-
projects that they had worked on were absolutely
Ka-ching.
gorgeous.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
how good they were for that price. They're beautiful.
yeah. Jackie, and,
Sure, so the Transportation Committee, we had another meeting since our last Budget Committee meeting. We have received the bus counts for September, and based on the counts, we do feel there's still some flexibility or possibility for looking to consolidate some of the high school busing. So we're in the process of scheduling a meeting with Dale Transportation to talk about options once again, to see if we can reduce from 5 to perhaps 4 buses and save some of those funds, but still provide, you know, decent service and routes. I think folks remember that the issue was when we did propose reducing from 5 to 4, there was concern about the lake and not having any transportation to the lake. We thought we might have had an interim plan with a kind of morning shuttle bus, but then we didn't have any service for the afternoon. So we're looking to go back to the negotiation table with Dale to talk about those types of options. We've also had a couple of issues in terms maybe of service or things that didn't go as well as we would have liked with a couple of bus routes or routes. One afternoon we heard that the children were stranded, the Co-Brown children were stranded at the community center because that day Dale decided to send 4 buses for the afternoon instead of our 5 buses that afternoon.
They sent 3 to, they were supposed to send 3 to Dover and 2 went.
Right, so overall there should have been 5 buses serving all of our high schools, and there were only 4, and so those children were left there. So we need to talk to Dale about that, understand why it happened, make sure we're not paying for that.
Yeah.
But also perhaps if 2 buses could work that day, why can't 2 buses perhaps work more often?
Yeah.
So we need to talk about some of that and just understand what's happening. So we're in the process of scheduling that meeting with Dale to understand what our options are and to see how we can consolidate and still provide good service, but have fuller buses and hence, you know, pay less for that busing.
It's not, I think it's also just there are 5 buses total. We have 3 running to Dover, 2 heading to Co-Brown. There are different stops and so forth, but there's also the distance issue. So it's not, you know, you don't want kids on the buses
No, it's-
too long, so we're really trying to work it through.
Looking at it from an outsider's perspective, it seems very easy, you should be able to consolidate, but when you start to look at where the children live and the distance between the stops and the schools and the length of time on the bus, it certainly becomes a bit more complicated. But we haven't given up, and we're gonna go back again and see if we can try to consolidate the buses.
That's great, thank you for the hard work on that.
We have a good committee. So.
Yeah, made a huge difference. Gene, anything new?
Yes. Got show and tell tonight.
Sweet.
Let's see how we do here. 1, 2, 3. And the rest go that way.
Thank you. Trying to see anything I have to sign. I should just sign it. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'd like to start with a little refresher for some and maybe new for some of the newer members of what is a capital, and just from the RSA, it's authorized by in a municipality where the planning board has adopted a master plan, which is Nottingham. The local legislative body may authorize the planning board to prepare and amend a recommended program of municipal capital improvement projects over a period of at least 6 years. However, I'm putting the word however in there. As an alternative, the legislative body may authorize the governing body of a municipality to appoint a capital program committee, which shall have at least 1 member of the planning board, and it does, John Moran, and may include but not limited to planning board, budget committee, town and city governing body. So I, in being the budget committee rep, I'm included, but it's not legally necessary, but I think it's a good thing to have, give you a heads up on some of the stuff that's happening, and that's what I'm gonna do tonight. Or the city and town, to prepare and amend a recommended program of municipal capital improvement projects projected over a period of at least 6 years. So the task is to look ahead 6 years, and we'll cover how we do that. And the capital improvement programs may encompass major projects being currently undertaken or future projects to be undertaken, even with federal, state, county, or other public funds. The sole purpose of the CIP is, and the effect of the capital improvement program shall be to aid the mayor, selectmen, and the budget committee for their consideration of the annual budget. So it's strictly an advisory committee to both the selectmen and the budget committee. Chris Sterndale put this together. It's the most, and I didn't even copy the whole thing, but it's the most comprehensive that I've seen as to where we are and what's coming due. Some may be interested in going ahead and looking at it, or leave it up to the CIP committee. The CIP committee consists of the 3 selectmen, John Moran from the planning board, and myself as a budget committee representative, I guess you could say. On the first, I've abbreviated on the second page, and they're not numbered because, as I say, this is not the complete package, but I wanted to cover the things that are pertinent to us. And we had before us at the Selectmen/CIP meeting, the highway department boss, and from the fire rescue, so the chief was there. And we covered some of the capital expenditures that are gonna be coming up in the year 2016, which would, on a town budget, that's what we're talking about, is the year 2016 we'll be budgeting for. On the third page is what we have right now for debt. And it starts with the year 2015, is projected out beyond the 6-year requirement, and you can see that some of the debt's gonna be paid off next year. If you look on the first line, it indicates the community center bond payment, principal and interest is detailed there. And it looks like it's gonna be paid off in about halfway through 2017. And that's good for planning purposes, because if you look down, you'll see that even though that ends, there are still commitments that go out further than that. So before approving new bonds or as mental fodder for making that decision, I think the Budget Committee should look ahead to see what's going on in terms of current debt. This is quite, as I say, quite a comprehensive report. Each page is comprehensive. And down, if you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items where it says fire station, the major subject, you'll note a little note there that the town has paid down the principal from their impact fees to the tune of about $18,000, but they made a dent in the principal by doing that. We don't know also whether the impact fee program is going to continue or not. It has to have a study done every 6 years in order to be able to continue it, and the planning board is struggling on making a decision. An FYI is that it costs $25,000, I believe, to do a study last time, and they've taken in about $19,000 for the town in impact fees, so it really didn't, it doesn't look like it makes financial sense. I would not predict whether it's gonna end or continue, that subject being the impact fee. Unassigned fund balance, the shaded area indicates the area that the general fund should be unassigned, and you can see that we've been under the recommended amount from DRA. The fund balance is cash with no obligations, and right now the trend is up to get back in that range of what's recommended. It's a computation that determines, it mentions in percentage here, and there's about 4 entries that Chris computes to see if the town as a whole is back into the recommended range. We did not have a financial crisis, but it was some management challenges last year to make sure that we didn't, due to tax bills being sent out but the money not collected. So they had to depend on the fund balance to keep things running in the town, which is not, the option to that is you go out and bond a short-term bond or loan, and that has not been necessary. And it looks like the way our spending is right now, we're getting back in the zone of reserves, if you will, undedicated or no obligation reserves.
And we've been specifically since, and I'm not patting myself on the back, so don't take it the wrong way. Since I got on the board, we have been specifically lowering the amount of money we use from this fund to offset taxes so that we can build this back up. So that we can be in the lower quartile of what DRA recommends. So it's been a conscious
So
effort.
some of this was intentional to keep it low,
The reason you see the number
the dip.
from 2012 moving upwards, that's been a conscious effort. We've been reducing the amount that we use to offset taxes at the end of the year.
Reduce the amount used to offset, which would mean the fund balance would grow, and it has.
So we just hold it back, yeah.
Yeah.
Like last year, we didn't hold,
I'll
we
be-
didn't use any money at all. And I don't know what'll happen this year, but my vote will be that we don't use any money at all.
And for the most part, that runs to the town administrator to keep the select board
Oh, it's a
apprised of,
combination. It's a combination.
yeah. So it's headed in the right direction under current spending.
I was just asking the chair if I could ask a question on that. I'm just trying to understand, is this similar to the funds that the school board now has, that 1.5%? I'm just trying to really understand this. So is it your surplus at the end? What is it?
No, we are required to hold an unassigned fund balance.
Okay. So it's money set aside from, at the end of the year, if you have literally money left over in your budget, it's unassigned, and you can put some of it toward the tax base and some of it here to
Yeah,
be,
but I don't think it works exactly the way that you.
well, not exactly, that's what I'm trying to understand, how it works.
It does not work the way that
The school
yours
does, okay.
This is, it's an unassigned fund balance. It's basically, when we're under budget, we can
It stays in the fund.
just keep it in the fund, yeah.
But
Well, it's
it
similar to
remains,
what-
it remains unassigned until it's appropriate, raised and appropriated.
Yeah.
You can't go out and spend it on what you
No,
choose to spend.
no, it's there as an emergency fund if we have to come back and.
So I think it's pretty much the same. It's similar.
I think yours has a
Yours
limit,
has
yours has a
a
limit,
cap,
I don't think
yours
this
is
has a
capped.
cap.
Ours is capped
1.5%.
at like 1.5 because we did that. We didn't want to. You don't have to fund it. It's similar. And then, you know, we did 60 this year and then put the rest back to reduce the tax rate. So it was almost 400 or so. So I think it's kind of similar. I was just trying to understand this one a little bit better.
Basically like a requirement to have a certain minimum amount in the bank, no matter what.
Recommended.
Recommended amount, but, yeah, we wanna have a minimum amount.
Yeah.
If something catastrophic happens.
So, yeah.
8 to 17% of the annual revenue from taxes.
That's what's recommended,
Recommended,
but you can see we've been significantly less than that, you know.
Chris explained to me today, and frankly, it's gonna take a sit down, but he said there's 4 factors of that to figure the 8 to 17%, and I cannot quote them,
Yeah.
but they are available from him. So onto the roads is the next page, the town-owned roads. And if you go to the bottom, the current priorities are listed by street of road. In addition to those that are listed, I've made a footnote there that, I want to make sure you got it, that's what I'm speaking for. But there is an outstanding petition pending for the paving of Gile Road. Citizens of that have petitioned the selectmen, and the selectmen haven't acted on it yet. And,
I recused myself from that because I live on.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
but
not
just informational, they haven't
involved in it.
acted on it.
No, there was a resident that came in with a petition, there was 100 signatures or more, and the selectmen to date have not chosen to act.
It's, my opinion is that we could see it as a warrant article. This did not come from the selectmen, it did not come from the CIP committee, but it's my opinion that they can get it as a warrant article, as a citizen petition with 25 signatures. If the selectmen choose not to do it, that is a possibility because of the interest that's been shown by filing that petition with lots of signatures. So by the time we get to budgeting, we might have a better idea, either by action or non-action by the selectmen, and either action or non-action by the petitioners of this, but not, they haven't petitioned yet to have it as a warrant article. The next page is the fleet projections, and I'll skip police and I'll skip recreation and I'll skip the recycle center and go down to fire and rescue. This in and on our first sheet, these were color coded, and the shade, the payment years are the darker numbers to the left. That's the time that it takes to pay off that. And this one was paid off, for example, tank 1 was paid off in somewhere 2006 or 7, and there's no more payments due on it. And the next thing for tank 1 is a lightly shaded area to the far right, and that is the expected lifespan. So when this is in color, and I penciled in the year the scale jumped from 215 to 220, so I did take the liberty of penciling in. And next year, if you follow that down for 216, we see, we'll go with the police, we see nothing coming up. Whoops, there may be an Explorer that's coming due there. It ends under the police. So you can see each department, the rec department, no activity, the recycle center, no activity, and then this ladder 1 hits. And that's gonna be proposed. This is ladder 1 proposed. This took up quite a bit of the meeting. It is a $800,000 cost item for the initial purchase and setup and to get it online. It is now being promoted as a quint vehicle. That is that it does more than just have a ladder on it. It's a pumper, it's a ladder truck, it's a hose.
Tanker.
And
It's
it's
got
a
a tank.
tank, it's got a small tank, 500-gallon tank on it. And we went through a list of questions with the chief and reached no decision on it and we won't for a while, best I know, as to whether to recommend it to the budget committee or not. It would appear before the voters as a warrant article with the total cost, and then any promotion or objection to that would have to be raised at town meeting. I suspect that the chief would put on a promotion for it and why we need it and so forth
I'm sure that the chief would be happy to come here and,
before the board.
sure.
And that would help, Mark, in the sense that this board anyhow would have some background. I'll just read off a bunch of questions that were put forward to them, if anybody have any objection to that. We questioned whether there'll be parking available at the fire station without an addition. He says there will be. The number of homes to be protected by this vehicle, I'll refer to it as the Quint instead of the ladder truck because it's more than a ladder truck. Don't know yet the number of homes that this would be effective. We get into a lengthy discussion about the building height restriction of 35 feet, and I talked to the building inspector today, and there's even some misunderstanding about that.
So Gene, just to clarify that,
Yes.
that was a question of how often will the ladder be used?
Yeah,
But the Quint itself would become the primary vehicle. That's the first vehicle to roll.
yes.
So it would be used all the time.
And the major reason to get it there first is to drop hose and get it in position to use the ladder.
Drop hose and get it established as the command vehicle. And if you need to use the ladder, you've got the ladder. You don't, it's not necessarily that you're gonna have to use a ladder, but if you need to use a ladder, you're not gonna be blocking other vehicles from coming in, right? Because once the hoses are dropped and they're charged, no vehicles are going around that. No vehicles are rolling over it,
That's a
you've got the
management issue to
scene
get
is
it there first.
Yeah.
Can I just pause for a second? What is the typical cost of like a typical engine that we have now?
If we were to just replace engine 2, we'd be looking at $500,000 to $600,000.
And is that needing to be replaced right now? Is that-
Engine 2, Mark, would you go up to, engine 3 is the oldest one.
Yeah, engine 3 is up for
Replacement.
Replacement.
If it hadn't been for the Quint coming along, that would have been
then
the scheduled
chief-
replacement.
Yeah, it's up for scheduled replacement, because the shaded area is, the beginning of the shaded area is when the vehicle should be retired. And the further that you go into that shaded area on the right, the more risk you're taking that you're gonna have major issues. So that's how to read that.
Yes.
That's
So
an
this-
aggressive end of life. It's kind of
Is that?
an aggressive end of life, that last bar of a shaded area. That's best case.
The
That's
last-
being very lucky.
The last bar is, yeah, you've been real lucky if you ever get that far. Now, what the chief is saying is, and again, don't read me wrong, because I was one of the ones asking the hard questions. What the chief is saying is that he would actually keep engine 3. He wouldn't retire engine 3. And engine 3 would be used on a limited basis to go to places that you probably don't want to bring a brand-new engine. Like if you've got an accident up on Route 4, you got a rolled truck, you bring engine 3 because you got everything that you need on it. You don't have to put your other engines at risk of traffic.
So we would still have engine 3, engine 2, and be proposing the Quint?
Yes.
Yes. But engine 3, again, would be, because it's paid for, and it's not costing us hardly anything, it would be there to be used in situations where you don't,
That's assuming it has no trade value then? Does it have no trade value?
I don't know how to answer that question. It's a pretty old truck, it's 1995.
Yes. We discussed, I'm sorry, you done, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these questions are really, it's a good question, but the chief should be here for that, and he does come every year, so I'm sure that
We discussed on mutual aid, whether that would cover instead of buying it. We discussed the building code. We discussed the footprint, because this vehicle is so big, if you put the ladder out to its extension without outriggers, stabilizers, you would have an issue. So we asked about the footprint of the truck, not as it goes down the road, but in a fully operational position.
We asked how, where could you get it? You know, where could you roll it in? And the answer was, anywhere that you can take engine 2, you can take this. It's not significantly bigger of a vehicle.
Those were the important questions. For us though, the last one was, there is a reserve fund for engine replacement, and we'll get to that, but this would wipe out the reserve fund, plus part of it would have to be financed.
That's right.
So if case engine 3 died within its role and was not repairable, there wouldn't be any money in the capital reserve fund to facilitate buying a replacement engine for that.
Does the fire department, I assume you, the fire department or you at the town, you keep sort of statistics on like how often in town do we have more than one engine even responding to a particular scene? Like what is the purpose
How
of
many
having
calls?
so many
That's a
vehicles?
good, again, it's a question for the chief.
We did ask that question, or similar, and he doesn't, the program that they put those responses in doesn't give all the details. In other words, it doesn't say it was a chimney fire, because we asked about those specifics.
But he'll know.
But he's gonna come back with us on
He knows when he rolls the engine, and he rolls the tanker, for example. They're two different pieces of apparatus used for two different things, right? So he will be able to answer that question.
And jumping down to the ambulance, which is, you see that's it, scheduled to be entering the shady area, I'll call it, end of life area. That hits in 2016, but that,
No. That should not be hitting in 2016. It should be hitting in 2017, I think.
that's what well, that's technically, that's the end of the shady area, but that's adjustable. But the thing is, they're not gonna budget for it this year.
Well, we have a ambulance reserve fund
Right.
that is paid for by ambulance runs. It doesn't cost the town anything to replace that ambulance every time we replace it. Because of all the,
I was gonna say that.
oh, okay. All right. As you said, we're not gonna budget for it. Did I just jump in on you? I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I've been known to do the same thing. So even though it shows here as a possibility, my point was going to be that there is a capital reserve fund for that. But it's actually called a revolving fund. Revolving, what do you call that?
That's it's the ambulance reserve fund.
Is it, but it's funded by fees from, mostly from insurance companies and other users of the ambulance/EMT services, which are administered primarily by the fire department, and some of it's contracted out to work with the insurance companies to get that money, and it stands now at $200 and something thousand.
Well on your way to buying an ambulance.
Well on its way. And the next page is a highway. So I'm concentrating on the fire department and highway because they're the ones that appeared before the CIP. And in 2016, what do we have hitting? Did we, I don't see anything hitting here, but didn't we talk about the 6-wheel dump? Is that gonna hit in 216 or 217? But that may require an upgrade to a 10-wheeler, which John says is much more efficient in terms of what the type of work is they do. But that will be, if that hits, that Mark's gonna tell us if it does, then that will be a warrant article also. So there should be no line item budget for that item. Mark, can I go?
Chris, good timing.
Oh,
What's the deal on the next truck for Johnny?
the 6-wheel dump, it's gonna be coming due, is it next year or this year? I mean, 216 and
Are you in
217.
CIP mode?
Yeah.
That's 2017.
Okay, that's what we thought. So it shows just the beginning of the, so it's not a consideration for this year. We won't see a warrant article for it
Correct.
this year. 217, we will. Unknown.
Maybe.
So did you say it wouldn't be a 6-wheel dump and a 10-wheel dump, but perhaps one or the other? Or are they both
The
scheduled
leaning
in
was
a-
towards a
Now,
10-wheeler.
if you look at this, you have a 6-wheel dump
And a 10
that
wheeler.
is end-of-lifing in 2017, and that gets replaced.
Correct, but then you have the,
Then,
right.
you have a 10-wheel dump that is
Oh, I
also
see.
end-of-lifing 2 years afterwards. 2 years afterwards, right? That would then get for replacement, and you got the gray area to deal with. We just replaced a 20-year-old 10-wheel dump, and one of the questions to Johnny was, why aren't we getting 20 years out of the 6-wheel dump? And he said, because it's a lemon. We've had issues with it from day one, and we replaced all sorts of things on it, and it's been a terrible maintenance hog for us, so. I'm not happy with it.
The main purpose of that, here's our architect of this here, right in front of me. But it's a good quick reference to see what's hitting without going through a lot of research. He does all the work for us. The next page is reserve funds and capital expenditures. I'm not gonna spend any time on that, but it was discussed. And again, this is just the highway and the fire rescue. The CRF stands for Capital Reserve Fund. So you see highway truck CRF, read highway truck capital reserve fund. And that's funded, if you see, go to the second, where it says 214, 149,000, go down the next line, and that's the appropriation to keep that reserve fund up to speed in terms of being able to fund. And what we will see, based on the meeting we had, is right now, 2015, we funded that capital reserve fund to the tune of $50,000 as a line item. Chris, is the capital reserve fund from a line item or a warrant?
Warrant article.
Warrant article. That we can anticipate looking at what is coming to maybe the warrant article will say 75,000, but it will certainly say at least 50,000. And you see that 75 continues right across because of the price of equipment and the number of pieces of equipment that are coming. It's been projected that will deplete that capital reserve fund. And so the idea is to level fund it so you don't have a big hit in 1 year. The fire rescue, right now it's funded to the tune in 2015 of $325,000. And jump in, Chris, if I misspeak. The proposed ladder / quint fire truck is in the tune of $800,000. The capital reserve fund would cover $325-ish of that purchase price is the plan, which would deplete it. Which brings the issue of, if it's approved, is how much then do we spend yearly to replenish a capital reserve fund for the fire department? Not been decided. The tax burden in the reserves is on the bottom of where we are with current debt, and proposed capital reserve drives it up to the next shady area, and proposed debt payments drives it up. So you can see we'd be increasing the tax burden with debt and reserve payments. And the reserve accounts to the right, the assumption is, from the architect of this correctly, is the reserve accounts would be depleted with each purchase. And that's predicated on the cost of this equipment. And the interest rate is advertised at about 4%, and the term would be 5 years for most equipment, 6 years on the ladder truck, also known as the quint. And that ignores inflation and interest earnings, which I think we all know what you're earning for interest. I mean, earning is not much. A little consideration here, I'm not gonna read through it, but this is what the highway and the fire department are facing in the years coming. Just a little narrative. And the capital improvement CIP proposed is, this is what would be proposed from the existing departmental needs. And the CIP, as I read in the beginning, the purpose of the CIP would be to discuss these and bring it forward to the Budget Committee with their recommendation. The Budget Committee has the ultimate duty to recommend or not recommend before it goes before the legislative bodies, otherwise known as the voters. The fire department at the end of 215, capital reserve fund, I had this request from Chris when I was in today, but I don't know. Was only $553? I'm confused.
That's a legacy fire station, not a vehicle fund.
Oh, okay. Oh, I should have read it. Fire department building CRF, not the equipment.
Yeah, that's
So that
probably-
is effectively is depleted. Thank you. And on the last page is mostly dealt with fire and rescue, but there is a replacement or a CIP proposal, which is capital improvement. And you can see the year that it can hit, and I bring you to the fire and rescue. The first thing is a ladder, which again is referred to as a ladder slash quint, which means it has quint means 5 functions. It would be a new, and the way to pay for it would be CRF plus a bond. So it would be the capital reserve fund, which would be wiped out, spent, and a bond to supplement that to the tune of $800,000 for that piece of equipment. So we'll be discussing that. And down in the highway department in 216, we're looking for no vehicles. As you can see, the first 5 items are vehicles: the dump truck, plow, sander, 10-wheel. Nothing happening with this upcoming budget in terms of replacing or at least purchasing. And the highway department, though, is an ongoing process of shim and steel coat and road reconstruction. And this, I would remind you that there is the potential of a Guile Road citizen petition that would affect this number if it were to pass. And I don't know if it's gonna go that far or whether the selectmen will act on it and shuffle some of the requirements around to Guile Road. Those are some of the options. The operating budget and capital expenditures on the next page, the highway department, police, fire, rescue. There's gonna be some expenditures which we'll get a better explanation than I can give you. But this is the type of work that the CIP is supposed to do. Look out further than next year in this sheet. And I complimented you, Chris, so I'm spreading this out. It's been the best presentation I've seen. And if anybody's interested in the whole presentation, which gets into some demographics, it gets into potential population growth, I probably have 2/3 of it here, so there's more to be had if anybody has a global interest in what's going on with the CIP. I have a copy here of the warrant article what would be covered in a warrant article if it comes to the quint, and it gives us a little bit more information on what it can do, what it is. This was by the chief, presented to the CIP, and the reason for it. And be aware that on the back side is some budgeting details about where the money would be. And if you'll notice in 215 rather, last year we did, or the voters did approve a purchase of a utility truck, and that has been purchased by the fire department. It's a crew cab type big pickup truck for a multi-purpose. I don't know if you remember, we talked about that last year. Well, they did go ahead and purchase that, and Mark had mentioned it earlier that they came in under budget on that for about $47,000 rather than $49,000. But the next line shows that if the quint were to be purchased, the reading to the left, the balance in that would be depleted.
But disregard everything from 2016 on this. Because at
It's
the-
dependent on actions.
Well, at the meeting, the selectmen agreed that we would never drop a capital reserve amount down to $10,000, which was what the chief was trying to do, is show how we could work the quint in without the total impact of taxes going up. So that's where you kind of see it, 100,000, right on the right. And the way that he was proposing to do it was to drop the capital reserve. We all agreed as a board that that would be shooting ourselves in the foot, so we would not
But
do that.
there's no free money for it, it has to come from someplace. So it's either gonna be immediate taxation, or depleting the capital reserve, which Selectmen had talked about not doing, and then building it up quick again, which would mean that you'd have to appropriate replenishing at a higher rate of the capital reserve.
We have a lot of discussions to go through
Yes,
to figure out, because, you know, you look at the 50K that we've been putting in there, and that actually was insufficient if we were just gonna spend 500, right?
Yes.
So the cost of these vehicles has gone up at a more rapid pace than our capital reserve.
what Mark is referring to, anybody that didn't understand, is that right now we budget as a 50,000 a year to go into that fund, and it's proven not to be because of inflation and the cost of equipment and so forth. So that, how would you fund that to a higher rate? Via a line item or via a warrant article?
No, you'd have to change this. That's a warrant article every year, right? The capital reserve fund for the,
I want to make it clear.
yeah, you would have to change that. You would change that. That would affect column, the left column on this sheet. And then you've got the payment and the debt service for the vehicle, whatever vehicle you get. Or you don't get a vehicle, you know, however it works out.
Those are things that this board's going to have to struggle with eventually within this budget cycle. The selectmen have the opportunity to put this, just as the school board does, their own warrant articles on board. And then it's up to the voters, but we do, in fine print, recommend the acceptance of these warrant articles by a vote of the board, so you could have 11 in favor, and it kind of guides the voters as to what the general feeling is for that. So the selectmen, if I'm not mistaken, have that on the warrant article too. There's 2 entries of recommendations. Budget committee X number recommend, and the selectmen, I think. So that's kind of a footnote to, by law now, that you are able to do it.
It's been done that way.
Yep.
So as long as I know.
Yep. So what
We're now doing, everybody is now doing is putting the tax impact on the warrant article.
A small footnote on the tax impact. After this revaluation, we are up in the $500 million range for total assessed property in which taxes can be levied, and it jumped about $40 million. We don't know what the tax rate is going to be, but it's going to be spread out over a larger area because the rate is set for so much per thousand of value, and our value has gone up. I'm in the process of looking at where that value came from. So the major point to remember is that for all of us, both on a personal level and on a budget committee level, is that the tax rate doesn't determine your tax bill. There's 2 parts to your tax bill. It's the value of your property times the tax rate. So a variable between any one of those, if your value goes up and the tax rate comes down, you may or may not be paying the same amount because you have to raise the amount of money. So any idea when the tax rate will be set?
I've been expecting it, so anytime now.
Anytime. And briefly, can you say how that process works? We fill out the paperwork, we send it to the state. The state determines the county, the portion, the school portion. The school supplies their.
School supplies their information to the DRA.
Yep. Town supplies the DRA. the DRA inserts the county and the state tuition tax. And they combine all that, and
They're gonna have to look at revenues, right, to see what you'd rate, what net you'd have to raise and appropriate.
yeah. But that's all on the, what's that form called that comes back?
Oh,
The ton of them, but,
12 forms that
yeah.
contribute to the
But,
process.
but most of us just look at what the rate is, we go right to that, but there are some considerations that are built into that process of establishing a tax rate.
Awesome. Thank you. It was the best, most thorough CIP we've had since I've been here, so appreciate it. And thank you, Chris, for all your hard work getting that together. It's
Yeah.
a lot of great information.
Not done yet.
Work in progress.
It's never done. Things change.
Sometime in the past, we've done a default budget subcommittee, something we haven't done, we didn't do one last year. We want to table that one until Mike comes back, he has a lot of good input on that. As far as the, you know, who would want to be on it, is it necessary to even have one in the first place? Because a lot of times it's just a regular budget, minus contractual obligations that we've got to pay anyway. So when we table that one to the next meeting, Mike's around, we have more discussion on that. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes, definitely.
Other business? Anybody have any other business? Anything else you want to discuss? Go to the round table, start off with scrap or anything today?
I have nothing.
Don? Gene?
I have nothing else.
I have nothing at this time, either.
I'm good, thank you.
All set.
Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? All in favor? Passing unanimously.
Wait, who was the second?
Dawn.
Thank you, sir.
Bernald, not Bernald. I caught that too. Thank you for. It's my pet peeve.
Well, you're following me. Thank you.
I know, that's your first.
The ones on the left that were